The last few modern fighting games I covered on this show were rife with drama in their development, their post-launch, and beyond. Not so with today's entry. Even their social media pages were just used to promote the game itself, an arena fighter whose full release was in 2021, and its DLC, both paid and free. That suits me just fine. This show isn't really for drama, it just keeps happening. This show is for goofy stories and rosters full of weirdos, which today's subject has in spades. I'm Eric J. Chucky, and welcome to Violent Profiles, where we discuss obscure fighting games and the rosters that define them. If you could ironically smash that like button and post-ironically leave a comment, I would be genuinely appreciative. Share the video around for the memes, of course, and if you like what you see, hit subscribe so you can make sure you know when the next video drops. Mighty Fight Federation comes to us from publisher Forthright Entertainment and is Canadian developer Komi Games Incorporated's only title as of recording. It mostly gained notoriety for its crossover characters, which is a pretty common trend in indie games from Dead Cells to Fall Guys and beyond. It won a few awards while still in early access, and getting my hands on it for this video, I can see how so many people saw potential within this little button basher. The control scheme is acceptable, with a standard and special attack can each be modified by holding down the left bumper. You can jump, there's a context-sensitive button to dash, dodge, or combo break, you can enter a powered-up hype factor state, and every character has a super hype attack they can unleash once per life. Speaking of, the standard mode is a 2-stock elimination, and the game supports up to 4 fighters on screen at once, but that action is a bit frenetic for the more focused nature of Violent Profiles, so you're mostly going to see one-on-one bouts in this footage. So, what's the catch? Why isn't Mighty Fight Federation as popular as Them's Fightin' Herds or Skullgirls? I think most of it comes down to the game feel. Almost all of the characters handle decent enough, but those who stand out as awkward or clunky really stand out. Targeting can be a problem the same way AAA pro wrestling games have struggled with all these years, except Mighty Fight Federation doesn't share their budget and decades of iteration. It lacks polish, the kind of final coat that separates your average first-party Nintendo product from its clones on the same platform. As an example, it's easy to get locked into an infinite combo from some enemies, and the breaker button needs hype meter to work, so you're not always going to be able to escape. These things aren't egregious, especially when the game is only priced at $30. I think that's a fine amount to pay if you intend to play Mighty Fight Federation party style with your friends to unwind, as opposed to making your esports career off this game, although that's assuming you don't already own better, more expensive games for that express purpose. Or Fortnite, and that's free. But you're not here for my review of the game's quality, you want a brief on the game's story and characters. Our backdrop ties into the final boss as it often does, an interdimensional being known as Hyperion, a formless creature who feeds on the literal emotional output of hype. He has traveled the multiverse drinking up dribs and drabs from various warlords and demagogues, but nothing matched the veritable smorgasbord presented to him when he discovered professional wrestling. This was his true opportunity to sate his appetite. Collecting warriors from across the many worlds he had seen, Hyperion took a humanoid form and trapped them in a dimension of his own making where he could sell their battles on pay-per-view and feed for the rest of eternity. Like any good quote-unquote tournament organizer, he promises wealth, power, and wishes granted, but unless someone actually manages to beat the snot out of him, he has no intention of ponying up. Hyperion is unlocked from the start and playable in arcade mode, where he summons the greatest fighter he can think of to drum up maximum hype for his next event, another Hyperion. After the two Hyperions clash in the final battle, they shake hands and congratulate each other on a good fight, and a crowd of cheering Hyperions celebrate the sportsmanlike display. I like this. I like that it doesn't descend into the two out-egoing each other as so often happens. Villains supporting villains, you love to see it. Hyperion has a few flashy teleports, can steal hype meter, and his hype attack is becoming giant-sized and squashing the opponent between his clapped hands. All in all, solid final boss shtick. I want to start the rest of the roster with someone relatively normal before we get into all the goofy nonsense, and the only person here who remotely meets that brief is Billy Strikefist. Canadian Prime Minister and beloved street crime fighting brawler, he's tired of going through the motions and beating up the same goons over and over again. Even the bosses become regular enemies after a while, and Billy is looking for a greater challenge, a greater purpose. See, Prime Minister Strikefist is actually a video game character, in the vein of Final Fight's pro wrestler turned vigilante turned mayor turned vigilante again, Mike Hagar. His appearance and move list scream a bit more Guile from Street Fighter with his flash kick and camo pants, and he also can toss out hurricanes. Should he find victory against Hyperion and force the Mad Titan to grant him a wish, he emerges from the arcade cabinet to clean up the real mean streets. For better or worse. Compare that to Heckbane, the games-focused hellhound seeking internet clout. He's got a sponsorship with Soul Cola, which he drinks to enter a powered-up state where he can shoot giant fireballs, and he employs a spammable dash attack, which is merciless if you're as precise with it as the computer is. His hype attack is a bit difficult to land, being a short-range grab, and since he was the first character I tried before playing the tutorial, for a while I thought it was a taunt button that let me take selfies. The parody of social media Jim Bro couldn't be clearer, right down to obviously skipping leg day. He's fun. Most of this roster is fun, and in that spirit, when he wins the tournament, he becomes the new ruler of Hell, which he quickly renames to Heck, and dedicates to merch making, partying, and getting swole.
No egginy, no bragginy. Am I right?
Rogue anthropomorphic computer virus Lex has lost a core part of her code and has been tearing a path through everything with an internet connection on her clock cycle, which is definitely not a Tron light cycle, Disney, back off, trying to find it. She's even gone so far as to split herself into copies to widen her search, but to no avail. That is, until Hyperion offers her a better solution. Brought into the physical world, Lex pirouettes around her enemies while swinging a lead pipe like some kind of cyberpunk witcher and can switch to a pokey halberd, which is absolutely broken. It has some of the most toxic pressure in the game, and if that's not enough, she can run you down with a clock cycle as part of her regular move list or her cinematic hype attack. Should Lex find victory, and why wouldn't she with that halberd, instead of finding her missing code, she decides to use Hyperion's power to assimilate the whole world, forcing them to worship her like the digital goddess she is. A send-up of gritty 90s action heroes like Cable and fellow parody Duke Nukem, Stingray was experimented on by his government to make him the perfect bioweapon. His primary attack uses a combat knife, and he has a bevy of grenades and landmines to toss out at his foes. He can even charge his own body with his hyper attack, exploding like a living grenade for tons of damage. This might sound cool, but the aforementioned targeting issues make him a little underwhelming. Stingray's other main gimmick is that he doesn't seem to know what a stingray is, as none of his abilities or aesthetic have anything to do with a stingray, and he keeps quipping one-liners like, "A stingray never forgets," and "You can't teach an old stingray new tricks." Should he employ all those explosions to return home and rescue the object of his affection from the military, a tortoise named Maria, he tries to rebuild his life with her. But the things he's seen, the things he's done, and the things that have been done to him have changed him. Stingray accepts that it's no longer meant to be. He sad Hulk walks away, leaving an oblivious Maria by the lake with a suitcase of her belongings. Remy Redcard is more of a pastiche of parodies. A failed soccer player who earned his nickname from the amount of penalties he accrued by not being terribly good at the game in the first place, Remy made a deal with a demon to give him an army of invisible clones who help him score goals with their football prowess. Remy is catapulted to the top of the league, but the horrible price for his power is revealed on the night of the championship final, where a life is taken for every goal scored. The entire stadium collapses in a burst of power, killing everyone in the arena and leaving Remy blind. He knows he must atone for his greed and desperation, so when Hyperion promises him anything he could desire by entering the tournament, Remy makes another deal with another devil. As you can imagine, soccer ball projectiles and the clones are a big help to Redcard on the battlefield, and he can even teleport to his clones to dish out extra damage. He's pretty fun. The whole thing's a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure parody with his stand-like power that only he, and presumably other stand users, can see, and specific mention in his bio of embarking on a bizarre adventure. There's a little bit of Ghost Rider in there with the deal with the devil to be better at sports, and, well, you know.
It's got FIFA on it.
Once Remy hands Hyperion his handsome chin on a plate, his wish is granted and he is returned to a time before his catastrophic pact, resolving to only use his skills to win the match. Unfortunately, he is still blind, and without his clones, he shoots the ball into his own team's goal. Everyone hates him again, but at least they're alive to do it. I don't know how many of you were active in the fanfic scene in the 2000s, but the joke Originelle is embodying here is born of that era. Original characters in fanfic were often overpowered, and the source of their greatest power and conflict was often that they were half angel, half demon. Y'all might think the frequency of this phenomenon is overblown by internet memes, but it happened a lot. I myself used to play D&D with a guy who had a tortured half-angel, half-demon OC who was cursed with being too awesome. Originelle has two forms, a trap-laying light form and a dark form with projectiles and lifesteal. Her hype attack sees a huge well of power created by both forms, zapping adversaries into oblivion, and when she wins, she chuckles and cracks a joke about the Chaos Crystals.
You mean the Chaos Emeralds? I'm going to assume you mean the Chaos Emeralds, because if that's what you're concerned about, I've got one of them right here.
I've literally had that clip saved since I started this series, hoping I'd have an opportunity to use it, and here we are, the glorious day has arrived. Anyhow, despite the riff, Originelle is, ironically, every bit the hero she's supposed to be. Plucked from what may very well have been the moment of her demise at the hands of the Dark One to fight in the tournament, her wish upon victory is to end Hyperion's evil and return home no matter her fate. The game even leaves us hanging on whether she survives or successfully defeats her ultimate adversary, but she is at peace knowing at least one Tyrant's Crusade has been thwarted. Our next fighter is Charles Edward Ogden III, or CEO for short. A man born into wealth and trained to be a mogul from a young age, he has long believed money equals power. One of his acquisitions brought him ownership of an armored cuirass that literally grants the wearer power commensurate to their self-worth. A practiced martial artist in his own right, CEO found a way to use his financial worth instead, using his vast riches as a source of great power and a way to acquire more. He used this greed wave technique to rise even further, completely conquering the business world, but it wasn't enough. Hyperion offered him a spot in the tournament, and though he gained nothing in the initial negotiations, he got it all upon winning, taking the Mighty Fight Federation from Hyperion and turning it into a pan-galactic franchise. Now, CEO has ultimate power. and Ultimate distribution rights. Toonstone may look like a drunk animated skeleton, washed up musician, because he is all of those things. That's a line lifted directly from the website. I rarely do that, but I also rarely get such a raw summary of a character from the source material. The first champion and thus a victim of the Mighty Fight Federation, the skeletal rocker swings his key scythe as Hyperion's right hand, serving as the penultimate challenge before the man himself. His voice acting gives a Lemmy Kilmister vibe, which I appreciate, and he likes throwing back a bottle of Toonshine to get him lubricated for the fight. He's also got some sick rockstar moves like a power slide and shooting giant glowing chrome skulls at his opponents. Fully playable in arcade mode, Toonstone is fed up and turns against Hyperion, aiming to defeat the promoter and return to the life he loves, rocking out on a sold-out stage. Except this time, he has Hyperion as his begrudgingly loyal roadie. Our next fighter is Crystal, a detective who made her name exposing corruption and taking down exploitative titans of the business world. So when she was put on the case to investigate Cross and his pharmaceuticals company that was rumored to be doing human experimentation with strange gemstones, she leapt at the opportunity. The further the plot unraveled, the more pies she discovered Cross had his fingers in, and when she finally confronted him, she found that even the police were part of his dominion, and she had been lured into a trap. Bombarding her with lethal amounts of energy, Cross expected his adversary to die, and his vile endeavors to continue undaunted, but instead he created the very monster that would be his undoing. Crystal uses the gem structures on her transformed body to shoot rapid-fire blasts, leave traps, and even freeze the opponent in place with her hyper attack, allowing her to drop even more beatdown on their sorry corpse. Should she find victory against Hyperion and return to her world, we see her confront Cross for the last time. Though apparently Crystal's time in the tournament has seen her reconcile with her new form and give herself over to what she has become. The final member of the original roster is Killbot 9000. Remember when we just slapped 9000 on the end of something all the time to make it sound futuristic and powerful? Hell, I still do that. Why is that the go-to number? Is it Vegeta's fault? I'm gonna guess it was Vegeta's fault. Praised as the best and most efficient robot killing machine in a Terminator-like war-torn world, Killbot 9000 suddenly finds itself unable to kill. Maim? Sure. Wound? Absolutely. But finishing a life suddenly escaped its considerable programming. Dismayed by this, it accepts Hyperion's offer to enter the tournament in hopes of reclaiming its lost purpose. Killbot fights with electrical charges, can power up as its hyper attack, and even does amusing little Rock'em Sock'em robot-style punches. Should it use all these tools to claim victory, Killbot 9000 once again finds a way to kill. And kill it does, rendering everything in its path into a mountain range of bleached skulls. All that remains are the guest characters, and it's an interesting lot. First up, ToeJam and Earl from the memorable 90s roguelike that shares their names. Yes, it's roguelike, decades before that term gained popularity. It was directly inspired by the original Rogue. These funky aliens crash their ship in the Mighty Fight Federation arena, and Hyperion calms his rage long enough to offer them entry into the tournament in exchange for a new vessel, which they accept. Big Earl is slower and stronger, while ToeJam uses all those legs to speed around the battlefield. Both use the emblematic items of their franchise to batter their opponents, and you can tag between them quickly with a push of a button. Victory brings the aliens a new ride as promised, which they swiftly crash into something else as per their usual antics. One might ask why, of all things, a pair of 90s adventure game characters are in this 2021 button basher, and it's quite simple. The fourth game, subtitled Back in the Groove, released not long after Mighty Fight Federation itself landed in open beta, so it makes sense for them to have been included in a patch during pre-release. Here's a fun tidbit. Macaulay Culkin executively produced Back in the Groove because he loved the original game so much. Younger viewers may be wondering who that is.
Probably some loser sitting at home in his mom's basement, home alone. Yeah, home alone. Yeah.
This pair was swiftly followed by another, Yooka-Laylee. The 2D platformer spin-off of their 2017 3D Maiden Voyage also released in 2019, so the chameleon and bat duo from the folks that brought you Banjo-Kazooie were prime candidates to be included in the mighty fight. In fact, the whole affair seems to be a setup for The Impossible Lair, as Yooka-Laylee villain Capital B only drops them off with Hyperion to get them out of his hair for a bit. Beat the game with their tongue-lashing, sonic shrieking, whatever this thing is in onslaught, and they return home only to discover brand new trouble is afoot. Much like Banjo-Kazooie, while I don't like their origin game, I do find Yooka and Laylee fun to use in their fighting game incarnation. Elsewhere in 2019, a long-awaited title finally came to fruition, Blood-Stained Ritual of the Night. Brought to you by genre veteran Koji Don't Call It a Metroidvania Igarashi, this Symphony of the Night-inspired title starred the cursed protagonist Miriam. She is a shardbinder, who are meant to be human sacrifices to summon demons, but Miriam escaped this fate and in her native game seeks to stop fellow escaped shardbinder Gebel from unleashing hell upon the world. It isn't exactly explained how she ends up in the Mighty Fight Federation, as often happens in indie games like these. As the last character added to the roster, she's unavailable unavailable to play in arcade mode, and thus has no intro or ending. Even her bio only says that she just sort of woke up here. What she does have is an impressive moveset with several different weapons and power styles that can be switched between to mix up your foes and wreak havoc with many of the signature abilities she gains in Ritual of the Night. Finally, the two paid DLC fighters Kunio and Ricky from River City Ransom. The closest reason I can figure for their appearance here is the 2019 spin-off River City Girls, which takes place in the same universe, but if that's the case, why not use the new characters Kyoko and Misako? Well, it's not for me to judge. These high school street toughs play essentially the same, brawling and picking up weapons from their series to batter their opponents. Kunio is the one in white, he gets in trouble for being a delinquent, and this is Hyperion's excuse to suck him into the tourney. When he emerges victorious, Kunio forces everyone to play in what he calls a real tournament, Super Dodgeball, in homage to one of the many other Technos NES games in which he also appears. One-time rival turned best friend to Kunio, Ricky on the other hand finds Hyperion while searching for his missing partner, and joins the fight after the Hype Eater eggs him on to prove he's stronger than Kunio. After defeating Hyperion and returning home in Ricky's ending, the pair engage in an epic brawl to determine who truly is the toughest guy in Tokyo. I didn't actually play as these two, I didn't buy the DLC. It's only $7, but that's twice as much as I paid for the game on a Steam sale, and I didn't even need to do that since I apparently got it for free on Epic some years prior. Well, I never played River City Ransom either. I don't feel like I'm missing much by not having hands on Kunio and Ricky myself. Most of the roster plays roughly the same despite their obvious differences, even in excess of most fighting game homogeny. I feel like everything I have to say about this game is damning it with faint praise. It's not bad. For a first effort, it's honestly pretty great. I'd love to see a sequel someday with a bit more spit and polish, or even just an update to this title that makes everything a little bit better. Mighty Fight Federation is a hard game to criticize, truly. Not that there aren't things to criticize, just that it makes me feel gross for pointing them out. But it's also a difficult game to celebrate. Next month on Violent Profiles, let's return to publishers you've actually heard of with one of the stars, a Capcom title with a roster of gladiators worthy of representation right here on our show. If you'd like to see that episode right now, my Patreon is in the link tree in the description. If you support us at the $5 tier, you'll add your name to the high scores currently on screen, get access to Season 0, and of course enjoy all future Violent Profiles episodes a month early. And hey, I'd be touched and honored by your contribution to my project and career. No joke this time, I'm just being heartfelt. Until the next episode, White out.